Hi, I'm Dustin Perry. I'm the CEO of Kingfisher Metals. We're a 2-year-old exploration company listed on the TSX under KFR, focused exclusively in BC. We've got 3 100% owned projects, Goldrange, Extol, and Tibbert, that total over 900 square kilometers. So big area plays where we had some excellent results at our Goldrange project so far, including up to 40 meters of 2.9 grams. And very recently, this week at PDAC, we announced an option to acquire 100% of 2 projects, consolidating them into the Highway 37 project, 362 square kilometers of incredibly fertile porphyry and epithermal copper, gold, silver targets in the Golden Triangle.
Dustin, thank you for the introduction. Good to see you. Here we are both back after PDAC. I'm feeling a bit jaded. Lack of sleep on the back of the bus and the time difference, and obviously not too much sleep at PDAC. And you're working from home. Have you had some sleep? How are you feeling? Are you feeling jaded or invigorated after PDAC?
Exhausted. It was good. As I just touched on, we just acquired this project. I got home last night, and it's 8:14 in the morning here. We picked up this project and it came down to the wire. We announced it, or I got the final signature at 7 p.m. on Monday night while out at a Canaccord function, actually, during the PDAC. So it was a bit of a grind. I think the first day I was in my hotel room on the computer the entire time. But since then it was I think I worked something like 25 days in a row coming back from the 1-to-1 in Cape Town. So it's been a bit of a grind. So it's nice to let loose a little bit at PDAC and start to tell this story.
Good. And how did you find the mood on the floor, or the mood in general?
I thought it was mixed. A little bit of hesitation for a lot of people to really classify what it was. Some people seemed optimistic, but then a lot of people seemed pretty nervous. Cash is tighter for a lot of companies. And I think the majority of companies are going to have a very hard time financing. But then on the flip side, it's a buyer's market because people are so beaten up that the companies that do have good assets and a little bit of cash so they're not up against the wall and getting tortured in financings. Those ones look pretty healthy, I would say. And the really good stories are still getting rewarded, but not nearly as much as you would expect.
Yeah, I agree. I felt there was a great deal of uncertainty and lots of people asking other people, where do you think the gold price is going? When's the stock market going to come back? Or the junior market, when are we going to be bid up? Because a lot of the companies have re-rated lower from last year, and despite the seeming improvement in the gold price and other fundamental prices, copper prices are strong, gold prices are strong. There hasn't been the associated re-rate really, apart from a few names. But you say things are you talk about a buyer's market. But it doesn't mean that it's easy to get new projects. And I know you've just signed a new project, but the quality assets are hard to come by. And I see the majors looking around saying, where are your good projects? Where are your good projects? And actually there isn't a lot out there. You did a lot of exploration last year. You've signed a new project. Tell me, first of all, before we get onto the new project, about your work last year and why you felt the need to go on to something else.
Yeah, absolutely. So last year was our second year of drilling at our Goldrange project at the Cloud Drifter zone, or Cloud Drifter trend. It's an area where we took a historic soil anomaly and did all the proper steps in exploration, mapping different types of geophysics, more soil sampling, more rock sampling, even backpack drilling. Push it through initial drilling, and we've had some really good results. Results that in a good market, not the worst market, which it is right now, basically, you'd get rewarded for. And I think an indication of how good the results were for that kind of early stage project where nobody's ever worked it before. We got invited to the core shack at PDAC, and I think there's 1,100 companies at the conference, and only 40 get invited. So that speaks pretty well to the quality of the project and the job we'd done, I would say. The previous year we were at the AMABC Roundup Core Shack, so it's not like we've struck out there. But that being said, we haven't hit the home run that's really needed to catapult a stock in this market. And right now the cost of capital is so high that to continue working that project would have probably led to a rollback fairly quickly, which is something I didn't want to do. But in addition to that, a lot of people have been distracted by lithium, for one. People haven't been looking as much at copper gold projects in BC, I would say, and there's opportunities out there. And I started looking for other projects before we even started last year's field season. One, something to do. Two, any good exploration team is always looking for new opportunities. And three, just in case we don't get rewarded for results, or if we totally strike out, which I wouldn't say we did. And we came across this project. It was not the first time we came across it. Our VPX has worked at it twice before, but we realized it was potentially available, and we really buckled down and did a lot of due diligence on it since mid-October. It was basically a full-time job for our VPX. I spent a lot of my time on that. Other geologists spent a lot of time on that, and the more we looked at it, the more we liked it, and the more Gail saw parallels with the KSM belt, where she did her master's degree and worked for Seabridge and I guess the predecessor to Pretium Silver Standard. So yeah, we were, by the time we got it, we would have been very upset if we didn't get it, because we're really excited about this project. So yeah.
Who are your counterparts? Who have you optioned it from?
So there's an inlier claim and then a much larger property. The much larger property was called Ball Creek, and it actually stretched quite a bit further to the west, right up to south and west of Shaft Creek, which is quite a massive low-grade porphyry that Teck has. So Gail had worked on all three of these zones. So there's a Shaft Creek aged porphyry belt in the furthest west. There's a Galore Creek aged belt in the middle, and then there's the KSM equivalent belt in the east. Plus, within the east, there's some SK equivalent stratigraphy. So there is potential for VMS deposits as well. So what we wanted was, out of all those deposits, Galore makes nice systems. Galore is a really nice deposit, but Gail's looked at that area and didn't believe the potential was there for Galore. She's also remapped Galore for Teck, so she knows that quite well. Shaft, we don't want to find another shaft. It's not getting developed. It's in the middle of nowhere. So if there's already a large billion-ton mine there, I don't think it makes a lot of sense, in my opinion, to be exploring for another one if it's not getting developed as is. And then KSM would easily be a mine if it had good infrastructure. It's just a very difficult setting with the terrain. Deposits are at very incised valley bottoms. You need tunnels, and a lot of them to get in there. I think it's 70 kilometers or so of tunnels between getting people in and ore out. So sorry, go on.
What is KSM when you talk about it? It could be developed if the infrastructure was different. What are you talking about in terms of grade and what is it? Is it it's a porphyry, I presume?
Well, yes. So at the north, you've got Tudor Gold with Treaty Creek, which I believe measured, indicated, and inferred probably is over 30 million ounces. Measured, indicated 17 million, I believe. And then you come south and you've got Iron Cap, which they've gone quite deep on. You've got Mitchell and Snowfield. They're now called Mitchell East, which is the thrust off top of it. Then you come south of that, actually we've got a map in our deck, south of Mitchell East, you've actually got all these new epithermal things that Pretium has found, but then you move into Sulphurets, then you move into Kerr, and then over to the east, you've got Bruce Jack. So basically, you've got a big porphyry belt and a superimposed, slightly younger epithermal belt on top of it with incredible grades in Bruce Jack, but then massive tonnages within the porphyries there. The greater project we acquired off Origin, or we got the option to acquire 100% off Origin Royalties, which is a royalty company, which, their MO is not to spend money on exploration, is to keep a royalty and a stake in a company. And then there's an inlier that has the Hank project or the Hank, it was called the Hank project, which we acquired off Golden Ridge. And that also has a Williams porphyry and the Hank epithermal system. So it was a two-part deal, but it's all one system. As you can see on here, it's just a large porphyry footprint where, at Treaty, KSM, Bruce Jack, basically alteration is continuous throughout that outline. It's too much information to put all that on there. It just makes more sense to put the resource outlines on that map on the right. On the left, we don't have resources yet, but we've got a very similar footprint, massive zones of alteration, huge Gaussons, huge geochemical anomalies, and then 3 zones that have really impressive drill results so far that are all open and just need a new set of eyes on them, and they need somebody like Gail Febo to really tackle it, who's got that experience working.
Where are those zones? Is that Hank, Williams, and Mary?
Exactly, and we've got other maps that pinpoint them on there.
Okay.
I just wanted to really show the scale of alteration on these maps here.
Okay, no, I've got it. So that I understand now what you refer to as KSM. It presumably means Kerr, sulfurates, and Mitchell. It was a series of 3 porphyries.
Originally called, yeah, exactly. So Iron Cap is the newest discovery there. It's turning into I think it could be ending up being quite a bit larger than what's displayed on there. Mitchell was a fairly recent discovery. That's where Gail did her master's, actually, putting together the structural story there. But she understands all these systems, and one common theme you see at within this belt, you see it at Treaty Creek too, at the Goldstorm deposit. You see often a sub horizontal geometry to these. And before I was mentioning Pebble appears to have that as well. There's a bit of that going on at Red Chris. This just has to do with the way the porphyry fluids decided to move. Maybe there was a fault. For example, in the KSM belt, the sulfurettes thrust, everything appears to be controlled by that thrust. So that probably has something to do with it. We've got some big regional structures apparent from magnetics at our project. We haven't had a chance to go put a drill hole through it and confirm that's exactly there. These are our interpretations. But it looks to have a very similar setting, and we're seeing these sub-horizontal ore patterns especially at the Mary zone. And what that tells us is that historic drilling that might have gone through it, based on the alteration, they weren't in the core. They were in higher level mineralization, and I think they thought because they drilled vertically, you asked me to prop my book. You asked me to prop my computer up here, and I put the Geologist Bible, the Society of Economic Geologists 100th anniversary edition that has the famous Lowell Gilbert porphyry model in it. That model is vertical because it's in a perfect world, but things don't always work out that way. And in this part of the world, they're often coming in sideways. And if you drill something on its side through it, and you go through it, and you think it's done, then you've missed it, because you actually need to follow the ore. And we see all the indicators, mainly just massive alteration system on another side of a mountain with geochem and IP chargeability anomalies. So everything's there to indicate that they have not found the source of these porphyries, and that there's a lot of room, and the scale is billion ton. It's not a small porphyry kind of potential. Like, we're looking for an elephant here.
Okay.
And we're in the right place.
So if I can just kind of backtrack and summarize a bit, 2022 you did, and 2021 you did good exploration on Goldrange, got some good drill core and got some good results, good enough to be viewed as a kind of a play opening discovery by the powers that be at the PDAC, and you got invited into the core shack, which is an endorsement of the work that you've done. But the capital markets aren't rewarding it. It's a terrible time. And so what you've done is you've identified a land package and an opportunity suite which can potentially replicate a proven belt with lots of high grade question mark. I know that Bruce Jack's high grade, but certainly high tonnage, metal rich area you've replicated in this consolidation window.
I'll just note that the KSM belt, that's actually the largest undeveloped gold deposit in the world by quite a bit. It's larger than Pebble now. So it's not like it's just a prize. It is the prize in terms of big deposits. It doesn't get any bigger than that. And it's probably going to get way bigger. It's difficult topography to find more of them there.
And
so,
when you say deposit, are you grouping Kerr, sulfurates, and Mitchell as one deposit now? I mean, are you calling that one deposit?
Well, or project, like KSM on its own is the largest undeveloped. But Mitchell's over 40 million ounces measured and indicated. So that's huge.
That certainly is big. And you talked about the tunnels. Is that coming in from the west to get into those projects from the west, moving to the east, or where are those tunnels coming from?
So the highway is east of that KSM belt. So Bruce Jack is accessed by, it's the only one that's being mined right now. And there is a road going in there to Bruce Jack, and it actually goes up and over a glacier. So they've got snowcats out there maintaining the road. I've got friends who work on engineering on that glacial road, and it's a pretty big logistical. Yeah. So the road goes over a glacier, which is currently melting. So there are difficulties there. Where at this project that we're at, the road and the power line, which is fairly new, it was put in by Imperial Metals, who initially had 100% of the Red Chris mine. With some BC government help, they built that power line. So that's already, that infrastructure cost is already there. But it's only a 9 to about 14 or 15 kilometer distance up a fairly gentle valley to the area we're exploring on this project. Much easier to envision development if we find something even a quarter of the size of the area or less. It'd be much easier.
Those kilometers off from the power line or from the road or both? Are they running next?
They run in tandem. Yeah. There's a photo on the front of our presentation now that is the highway and the power line.
As you're speaking,
one thing I just want to touch on. One thing I want to bring up just to make sure I don't forget is we touched on how capital markets are challenging right now, and not getting a lot of love for the results at Goldrange. That project we own 100% of. It's in good standing for a decade now. We don't have to we could just sit on it until gold picks up again. So it's not like we've written it off. It's just we don't have to do anything. It's a good optionality, it's a good point of optionality for the company. But the thing is, with this new critical metals flow through tax credit in Canada, now that we've got a project that you could say is 50% copper based, we can do that, which is way less dilutive. So with the charity flow through model, that if people are interested, I would just suggest Googling charity flow through in Canada. And I think PDAC, the association, has a good description. But we could raise capital at up to a 70% premium. So far less dilutive right now, and just makes more sense for our shareholders. And I'm a big shareholder of the company, so it makes more sense. I don't want to dilute the company when we've got such a good asset just because sentiment's so low.
Your market cap is so small, you could almost kind of just say, well, that's backstopped by the value of your Goldrange project.
The market cap is tiny given this portfolio, and there's been basically no reaction to this news of this new acquisition. Whereas today, another project I've been looking at for a couple of years that I think there's 3 projects in BC where you can fit a KSM, and it's KSM area, the Highway 37 area, and then Todd Creek. And some geologists I know at Arc West, they just announced that last time I checked, just before this call, they're up 72% today on announcing an option agreement. Freeport just optioned it. I think it's around a $20 million spend over 5 years to get 50%. So we're talking drastically more expensive than what we paid. And that project has its own logistical challenges that we don't. It's far worse weather there. You've got a massive mountain to get over from the highway, so you'd need a tunnel most likely, but also getting helicopters up and over there. I know a previous operator basically couldn't get any work done there one year because it was a wet, foggy summer and they could never get up and over the mountains, so they just never got in there to do work. We've got that luxury of being a bit drier, but also an easy valley to fly up.
I spoke with Freeport, a couple of Freeport geologists at PDAC last week, and I got there. I asked them, what are you looking for? What kind of target are you looking for? And they were quite explicit. They said they wanted scale and grade. They said if it's greenfields, it's got to be north of 0.7. If it's difficult, challenging infrastructure, it's got to be north of 0.8. They're looking preferably for 1 billion tons, but they could look at stuff which has got 500 million tons. They were saying they were aiming for the big stuff. And so when I looked at that deal when the news came out just a few hours ago, and I noticed that the second tranche of ownership, they can add another 29% to take them up to 80%, but they've got to spend $30 million in that next phase.
So 50 million to 80%.
Yeah.
Total.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. It makes it challenging because sometimes, especially I know on that project, you might get pretty messed over on 1 year with weather.
But if you have exploration success and you hit something and it's a drill out, you can spend that money in, exploration. Exploration's an expensive business, which I think kind of brings me now to, given where we are in these capital markets, you've had no response in your share price. You've got this fantastic project, but it's a big area. What do you do now? How do you eat an elephant?
It's pretty apparent that Kingfisher's fallen off the radar of many people. We were the new kid on the block for a while there, and a pretty shiny object that a lot of people knew about, and kind of fell to the side. And part of that, I haven't been marketing as much. I've talked about this with Matt. I had a brief battle with cancer that I beat last summer. So that was my focus in the summer. So I haven't been as busy doing a lot of this. And now it's go time. And so I just got home and I'm flying back to Zurich next week to beat our drum. And I'll be taking as many meetings as I can leading up. We will have to do a raise at some point here leading into the field season, but I'd like to give ourselves the best shot of getting a bit more exposure and hopefully getting a bit of share price appreciation before then. This project portfolio is worth a lot more than what it's being valued at right now.
Oh, Dustin, well done for looking so great and putting this deal together on the back of a pretty serious illness last year. So great to see you up and at it. What's the work plan? Okay, let's put the raise to one side, but in terms of working through your work plan, you've got a little bit on your presentation, on your corporate presentation, but if you could just talk me through that'd be really helpful.
So, we mainly were focused on getting this across the line. Now we'll be changing our focus to planning a program that is going to be capital dependent. But at the very least, we'd like to drill some holes. Not a huge program, probably 3,500 meter kind of range. And if things pick up, maybe we make that bigger. But we don't want to go full throttle in without, we need to familiarize ourselves with the project and kind of start out a little slower. But one thing we definitely want to do is some type of heliborne survey, such as a ZTEM survey. Large parts of this project have not seen any IP. It's very little IP has been done here. And IP induced polarization ground geophysical surveys are one of the best surveys for porphyries. And then if you want to step out and look a little coarser, doing them from the air, some of these airborne EM surveys work really well too. They're big targets, so they show up, they resolve well on these regional surveys, and then you can refine them on the ground. So I think we'll do some combination of that. Gail's going to be out there along with a few other consulting mapping geologists to resolve a few questions we have and fill in a few gaps in the map. I'm sure I'll be out there prospecting and going to the gnarliest drainages that nobody's gone to yet. I can't really get anybody else to go there. So, or I can't count on it, or I can't, it would be rude of me to push somebody if I'm not willing to go there myself. Plus I'm a bit of a glutton for punishment. So, it will be a team effort, getting familiar with this, getting some initial holes in, probably a fair bit of relogging of historic drill core. Really wrapping our heads around this. We've been 3D modeling it extensively over this time, and that's where we're starting to see some of these patterns that are getting us more confident in it. So a wide variety of work, but it won't be a huge program. I would like to do maybe a $3 to $4 million program max. We're not looking at a $10 million program or something like that. We're not going to dilute the company.
Yeah, good. Thank you. When you look at talk about the drill core and the modeling and the data, how recent is it? Is it good quality? Are you happy with what you're seeing? Are you going to have to repeat it? What's the shape of the database?
So that's something we're working on. Some of the historic drilling at Hank, so the epithermal system, so LAC Minerals, which went into Barrick, they did put together an internal resource, which I'm not going to mention. It's not compliant. People can Google that if they choose, but it's been drilled a bit since, so I think it's in question. But that resource was really shallow. They even named zones pits because it was a pittable resource. A lot of that drilling, we need to spend a bit more time verifying and we haven't displayed it in our presentation because we saw a few issues as we were going through it that made us question the validity of a lot of it. I think it basically just means we need to go through every single historic report piece by piece versus just trusting the database we received. Otherwise, a lot of the recent drilling is good data. I would say everything since the 2000s or so, we can definitely rely on. With the porphyries, if there's a historic drill hole close to an older one and it's similar, it's easier to trust that kind of data than on an epithermal system where you get higher, more spiky grades.
Yeah,
porphyries are often pretty homogeneous. So there'll be a bit of that. The core logging is more from the standpoint of just looking to see if people's previous interpretations were wrong. These models change a lot, and Gail knows KSM like the back of her hand, so it needs to be looked at through that lens because that's what the target is. These are the same age rocks coming into the same age rocks. It's everything is very similar. Like we're not going to find a Glore Creek here. If we find a deposit, it's going to be something like a KSM. It might not be huge. It might be an offshoot of it, but eventually, if you drill enough, you're probably going to find a big system here. It's just the game and exploration, right? You got to find it before you dilute your share structure too much. You got to find things quickly if possible. Otherwise, you're just setting it up for the next company to come in and drill one deep hole and find it.
Yeah, well, good. I mean, I like some of those grades you've got, and the intersections are already looking pretty tasty. I saw some kind of 0.3s in copper and 0.4s in gold over several hundred meters. It's not as if this doesn't feel like a completely greenfields target. It feels as if you're kind of quite vectored in on a system.
Absolutely. I don't know how far you could say it is towards a resource, but it's effectively, we would be doing step out drilling, exploration drilling, and infill resource drilling all at the same time could be done. We'd like to do some more. We'd like to lean a bit more towards the step out and exploration drilling right now, just to prove to the market the size potential of this. Get the share price up, and then bring in a bunch of drills in future years to start going for a resource. But yeah, there's a lot of meat on the bone here. It's pretty clear cut evidence you're in a significant hydrothermal system over, I think, 17 kilometers length, with massive, spectacular Gaussons all over the place and big geochemical anomalies. So the gold geochemical anomaly at Hank, I know a lot of people got excited, including myself, by the geochemical anomaly at our cloud drifter trend. The one at Hank's actually twice that big, to put it in perspective. And it's a small part of a massive anomaly that goes for this 17 kilometers by 9, I believe. So this is a big scale target. This ain't Mickey Mouse stuff. This is really, truly is world-class potential. And I think Gail would be a good person to say that, because she's the least promotional person. She hates using the word golden triangle. It's too promotional for her. So it would be good at some point to have her maybe run through the geology in more detail with you.
That'd be good. Dustin, thank you so much. What a fantastic update on your news and the step change news release and of the optionality that you got in this resource. Congratulations to you and the team for putting it all together, and good luck in the marketing and looking for the money.
Thanks a lot, Merle, and good luck with the PDAC recovery.